Hello students, we are going to study skin and appendages, histology of skin and skin appendages. Skin, it consists of two main layers, the surface epithelium or epidermis, it is derived from ectoderm, and subjacent deeper tissue or the dermis, which is derived from mesoderm. So firstly we will discuss about the epidermis. Epidermis, it consists of stratified squamous keratinized epithelium that is nourished by diffusion from the capillaries of the dermis. These are capillaries in the dermis. Epidermis is made up of following layers. First is stratum basalis or stratum basale. This is stratum basale. It is the deepest single layer of columnar cells that rests on basement membrane. It also produces melanin pigment. Second layer is stratum spinosum. It is made of 3 to 7 layers of polygonal cells which are attached to each other by desmosomes, giving it a pricky appearance. Then stratum granulosum consists of 2 to 3 layers of diamond-shaped cells containing granules which stain deeply with basic dyes. These are keratohyalin granules. So in stratum granulosum, granules are seen. Then stratum lucidum. Stratum lucidum, these cells lose their nuclei and form zone of flattened ill-defined cells. These cells contain refractile Ehliden granules. Last layer is stratum corneum. The cells in this stratum are flat and cornified. The nucleus and cytoplasm, they are replaced by the protein called keratin. This zone is waterproof and it is protective in nature. The most superficial cells are constantly being desquamated. So there are 5 layers in epidermal lining: stratum basalis, then stratum spinosum, stratum granulosum, stratum lucidum, and stratum corneum. Dermis. Dermis consists of an outer papillary and a deeper reticular layer. The papillary layer is in contact with the epidermis and usually uneven and projects into papillae between the ridges on the surface of epidermis. The papillary layer is thin and is made of fine collagen and elastic fibers with lymphocytes and plasma cells. It is very rich in capillaries and nerve endings. The deeper portion of the dermis is named the reticular layer and consists of dense irregular connective tissue with lymphocytes, fat cells, capillaries, lymphatics, and nerve fibers. Now coming to skin appendages. First we will study hair follicle. Hair follicles, these are the follicular invagination of epidermal lining. The hair follicle thus produce dips down from epidermis into the dermis and is surrounded by connective tissue. The active follicle, it has a bulbous terminal expansion and a concavity at its bottom occupied by connective tissue papilla. The papilla is covered by epithelial matrix cells of hair and is called germinal matrix. This is the germinal matrix which germinates the hair. Thus, the root is the part of hair that is inside the skin, and the hair shaft is protruding beyond the level of epidermis. So, that part that is in the skin is root, and above the skin or epidermis it is hair shaft. The hair root, it is comprised of hair root, it is comprised of medulla, cortex and cuticle. So the important part of hair root is, or it is comprised of medulla, cortex and cuticle, which is covered by the inner root sheath. Covered by inner root sheath. The inner root sheath, it consists of a cuticle lying adjacent to the cuticle of hair root. So the inner root sheath, it is comprised of two layers, Huxley's layer and Henle's layer. Huxley's layer is further comprised of 2 to 3 layers of flattened nucleated cells, and Henle layer of single layer of cuboidal cells. The outer root sheath, it is comprised of nucleated cells from the stratum spinosum and stratum basale. And outside the outer root, there is connective tissue sheath. So the transverse section of hair follicle. So hair root, it is comprised of medulla, cortex, cuticle, and it is covered by inner root sheath and outer root sheath. Then outermost, it is covered by connective tissue sheath. The inner root sheath, it is derived from the stratum corneum, while the outer root sheath, it is derived from spinosum and stratum basale. The hair projects obliquely outside the skin, and it consists of central medulla, cortex and outermost cuticle. The cells of the medulla are vacuolated and keratinizing. The cells of cortex are keratinized. The cells of cuticle, they are highly keratinized. Now the sebaceous gland. Sebaceous glands are holocrine glands and are scattered in the superficial layer of the dermis. These are absent in palms and soles. The glands secrete sebum and open by ducts into the upper third of hair follicle. So they open into the upper third of hair follicle. The secretory portion of these glands comprises rounded acini lined by a single layer of epithelial cells with round nuclei. Single layer of epithelial cells with round nuclei. Towards the center of the acini, the cells become polyhedral and they are occupied by the fat cells or fat droplets. These nuclei, their nuclei shrink, the cell break down and are called holocrine glands. Their oily secretion or sebum, it is conducted by short ducts into the hair follicles. Sebum acts as lubricant for the hair shaft. Sebum keeps the skin smooth and prevents it from drying. Other appendages is arrector pilli muscle. Arrector pilli is a band of smooth muscle fibers attached at one end of the papillary dermis and other to the connective tissue sheath of the hair follicle. The muscle is supplied by the sympathetic nerves and on contraction moves the hair into more vertical position. Thus the hair becomes straight and the skin in the region of it gets elevated. A neighboring region which gives attachment to the arrector pilli muscle is depressed to give rise to goose skin. The muscle contracts and the hair stands erect in response to cold, fear, and danger. The erect hair and trap air between them. Air being a bad conductor of the heat, it prevents loss of body heat. Sweat glands, they are distributed all along the dermis except at the margins of the lips and the glans penis, being more common in thick skin, that is palms and soles. These produce sweat which regulates the temperature of the body. The sweat glands are of simple coiled tubular type which has secretory and conducting parts. Secretory part is simple tube convoluted in several unequal twists into a ball, and conducting part is narrow unbranched tube. The cells lining the secretory part or acini, they are columnar and they rest on the basement membrane. So lining is columnar. Between the basement membrane and the lining acinar cells are few myoepithelial cells which help in expulsion of the secretion. The sweat glands are of two types, eccrine and apocrine glands. The eccrine glands, they are tubular coiled glands. They consist of clear cells and dark cells. The dark cells, they secrete mucus, whereas clear cells secrete watery fluid. The secretory acinus is surrounded by myoepithelial cells. The apocrine glands, they are located chiefly in the axilla. These are the larger sweat glands. They produce viscous secretions. This table shows comparison between thick skin and thin skin. In thick skin, epidermal or epidermis, it comprises of 5 layers: stratum basale, stratum spinosum, granulosum, lucidum, and corneum. While thin skin, it comprises of 3 layers: stratum basale, stratum spinosum, and thin stratum corneum. The epidermal ridges, they are present in thick skin and they are absent in thin skin. Sebaceous gland, hair follicles, and arrector pilli muscles, they are present in thin skin. Sweat glands and sensory receptors, they are many in thick skins while they are few in thin skin. Thick skin, where it is present in palms and soles and palmar aspects of the digits. While thin skins, they are present over all parts of the body except palm, sole, and palmar aspects of digits. That's all in the histology of skin and its appendages. Thank you very much.